I know you've got an ear out for the start of the podcast, but before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to remind you to keep an eye out for Darryl Lee's limited edition Christmas treats, because they're in stores now. Like the iconic Christmas nougat pudding, so yummy and a gorgeous little gift. And some delicious Chrissy-themed twists on your favourite treats, like the Darryl Lee Rockley Road with chewy red and green jelly pieces, green and red crunchy milk chocolate balls, my favourites, and green apple and strawberry flavoured licorice. Watch them disappear. Your Christmas treats table will pop with colour and scrumptiousness. Spread some joy, bring the fun, and enjoy the Christmas tradition that is Darryl Lee. Hurry before they sell out. Darryl Lee makes Christmas better. This is The 5 of My Life with me, Nigel Marsh. The series where I talk to notable people about 5 of their defining things. The way it works is my guests always choose a favourite film, book, song, place and possession. They tell me their choices in advance so I can research them, but they don't tell me why they've chosen them. That's the subject of our conversation. The reason I devised this series is I wanted to create a slightly different way to gain an insight into the real lives and thoughts of prominent people. Anya Hindmarch founded her eponymous fashion business at the age of 19. Over the next decade, she relentlessly grew it into a prestige brand with over 50 stores globally. Winner of Designer of the Year on 7 separate occasions and awarded both an MBE and an OBE for her services to fashion, Anya's products and brand have cult status amongst the fashion conscious around the world. This episode of 5 My Life is on location as I caught up with Anya at Fashion HQ in her office in London. So, Anya, the 5 choices that we're about to discuss, were they the obvious ones that just immediately sprang out at you, or did you agonise about lots of different candidates for each individual one?
Well, interestingly, actually, the 5 choices...
you can't tell me what they are
No, I'm not telling you what they are yet, I promise. They fell out quite quickly, actually, because... I don't know, as you get older, you know more about yourself, don't you? I think is the truth. And so they were quite quick to do. As you might know, I did the lovely Desert Island Disc, which was a really lovely honour a few years ago. And that was harder. And it was interesting, actually, I think, having done that and having sort of learnt more about myself, having just passed the 50 mark, you get to know what you're really about. So no, it was
Who was the
easy.
host on Desert Island Discs?
Kirsty Young.
Oh, I love her.
I know. She's amazing.
And for me, a bit like having a book that has a classic penguin cover,
yeah.
For no other reason than I feel I would have made it. To be on Desert Island Discs, that is a dream.
It really
that
was.
Is a dream.
It was one of those amazing...
Did you let yourself down, or did you...
I was nervous, I will be honest, because it's such a huge thing. I think the funny thing about that show is that it's so widely listened to, and over, people go back and listen to them again and again. And I think that when you're doing it, unlike if you do an interview for, like Vogue magazine or, whatever it might be, it's a very specific audience and you can talk to that audience. And actually when you're doing something like that, you're talking to everyone you've ever known, be it your teachers at school or your, the fashion crowd you do at work. So you actually just, it's quite disarming. You have to just be yourself. But I absolutely love Kirsty, so she's fab. And I love music, so that was nice to talk about that. And I hope I didn't let myself down. Of course, there's always things you'll probably rather change.
Sure you did. Did you discuss your 5 choices with your fella? Or your mates or your mum or your whatever?
I did with my husband a bit, actually. And it's funny, you kind of write a few things down and then you suddenly have 110 choices and you, of course, only need 8. And then you hone it down. And actually, it's really about what really matters to you as opposed to what you start off with what you kind of slightly think should matter to you. And then you work out, no, that's not what matters.
Well,
what
good
really
on
matters.
you. And we're starting with the 10th highest grossing animated film of all time, a film that got 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. The children's classic Finding Nemo. Tell me the story behind that.
Well, how sophisticated, hey? It's not quite your art sort of film. I think it's just because it has a nice memory, really, for me. It's a film that I think it's so brilliantly written because it has all the sort of the layers of humour that appeal to a 5-year-old, right up to my husband's 63, so right up to, and beyond to anyone. So you can enjoy it as you will and read into it, and it just has a lovely memory. So it's about the only film film as a family that we can watch together and all enjoy.
And now you've got an absurd amount of kids, haven't you? You've got 5.
I've got 5.
I usually say to people, you're a lightweight because I've got 4. But I'm out of my depth. I'm out of my depth.
I'm a bit of a cheat there, I will be honest, because I married a widower.
You borrowed some.
I borrowed some.
Okay.
But I've had them since they were 1, 3 and 4, so I've kind of very much had them and loved them very much. And so we have, therefore, 3, and then we had 2 more. So it's a film that we all love, and if ever I'm trying to do that Christmas, come on everyone, we can try and find a film. It's pretty impossible. My husband's like crazy about science fiction. I just only like things that relate to my life now and today. The kids want, etc., etc. So we were actually sitting a long way away in the Galapagos Islands, which was really a trip of a lifetime for the family, and we were with about 4 other families. So we were, I think, 32. I think we were something like 8 adults and 22 children or something ridiculous. And what's amazing about the Galapagos Islands, you're 600 miles off Ecuador. You have no phone signal, and it's just you and this landscape that's sort of untouched actually by sort of, today. And we, therefore, the lovely thing about a bit of boredom is that out of boredom comes creativity, and we were playing games and doing stuff, and there was just this one lovely night when everyone was very tired because it's sort of an underwater safari, basically. And we were all sort of holed up and, in our sort of old tracksuit bottoms, and everyone covered in sort of, blankets, and we all put on Finding Nemo, and everyone, all 32 of us, watched it, and it was just a very lovely, lazy moment. So that's
brilliant.
why it reminds me of that.
I love kids' films, a bit like Toy Story. You go, it's got something for everyone. You can watch it as a 63-year-old, but also as a 3-year-old.
And strangely, you can also watch those sorts of films when they're really well written. You can watch them again and again.
Yeah.
It's not a one-hit wonder. You can actually go back and find more in it. So they are beautifully written. So that's why it's special to me.
I love it. So we're moving from children's fiction to, I'm loath to call it this, but adult self-help. You have chosen a book written in 1978 by Shakti Gawain, if I've pronounced the lady's name correctly, Creative Visualizations. It's a pioneering classic, sold 7 million copies. Tell me about it and why you've chosen it.
This is a book, and I will confess that I haven't really actually read. It's a book that I love the kind of the spark notes of. It's a book. It's a philosophy ultimately that I really believe in and share with a great friend of mine, Natalie Massenet, who started Net-a-Porter. Who's a brilliant woman, and she and I sort of bonded over this book because the premise ultimately is that if you believe and creatively visualize what you would like to happen. So maybe it's a work ambition, or it's a personal ambition, or it's for me, I used to be very, very, very scared of public speaking,
right.
and so the idea of standing up and doing that was it was unthinkable. I couldn't get through my fear. And someone once taught me that, in fact, if you visualize, if you imagine you're standing on the podium and you're imagining all the faces looking at you and you're seeing it going well, and you visualize what you would like to happen.
Right.
So it takes the fear away, because almost it opens all your neural pathways, and you actually you've kind of almost done it. Actually, is the point. So you've sort of it makes that whole process a lot easier. And I think if you apply that to all sorts of things, so maybe you want to achieve something. So recently we've just bought our business back, for example, and in my dream during that process, what I really wanted to do was, there's a picture behind me on the wall, which is a lovely Margaret Calvert of a sign of women at work. So there's the road sign of men at work, but a women at work one. And my absolute thing was, I'm going to put that back on my wall, and I'm going to take back my business. And so visualizing that actually is much more likely to make it happen. So you're sort of concretely actually saying, these are my ambitions, and therefore you're working very much and very clearly and coherently towards an aim, as opposed to sort of slightly kind of following a windy road. So I do think that if you're quite concrete about saying, I would like to achieve this, not in a sort of a silly way, but in a kind of as a nice sort of good, clear, I think it's possible and I want to do it, it's much more likely to happen. So that book is about that premise, and I think it's a good way of thinking, actually, so that makes you very focused on actually what you're trying to achieve.
It's interesting with some of those self-help books, or in that genre, some of them a bit like you needn't feel they're the best book out there, but you can take the message. And some of them you don't need, like this one, you don't need to read the book to get it. So there's one I read ages ago, and it's like feel the fear and do it anyway. And you go, got it. I mean, I don't need to read 300 pages of examples. You're probably going to say, feel the fear and do it anyway. That's not a bad thing to do. That's quite helpful.
I so agree. I think, a lot of them are quite cheesy, frankly, and yet I think you always get one thing from it. It just helps you. And also it's taking time to stop and think. I think it's part of the process as well. There's a book I read ages ago, which was actually about, it's called The 1 Minute Manager, a very famous series of books. And it's the idea of delegation. It's talking about the monkey as the task, if you like, and it's about not having the monkey half on your back and half on someone else's back. So if you give a task, would you be kind enough to do X? Give it to them fully, give them a time frame, and leave them with that monkey, but don't leave half it on your back, so they can't do the job and you can't let go of it. And very simple things like that really helped me when I was starting the business. And so lots of those things. So I quite enjoy reading those sorts of books. I mean, grazing them, I will be honest. And I often find, because I think I'm sort of exhausted half the time and busy, that it's quite difficult to sort of sink into a sort of a novel. And somehow I find sort of grazing these books is actually quite a nice way to relax, but without giving too much time. I find I'm so sort of it's hard to wind down and actually really have the time to sort of get sunk into a good book. I do this on holiday. I will move away from self-help, you'll be pleased to know, on holiday.
Have you seen that there's a lady, I was in Texas at the thing called Southwest, and this woman gave this amazing speech that I was lucky enough to be at, but she's written a book and she's done a TED video. But it's similar to creative visualization, where, you know, the body language that a boxer or a sprinter will do if they win, the arms in the air. And this woman, sort of nutty, you go, oh, if you stand in that victory pose before you're about to do something, you know, you present to your investors or the board or whatever, and you know, quietly in the loo, no one can see you, and you stand like you've just won the Olympic gold medal, and you do that for as little as 10 seconds, and then you walk out in the boardroom, you will be more confident. Now, I do quite a lot of public speaking in my life and blah, 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 to sometimes, you know, 7,000 people or whatever, and that can be mildly petrifying. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to tell anybody, and it's the first time I've ever mentioned it, but I think I'm just going to try that out for a laugh. It's great. Really? It works. Yeah. So I'm going to try out I've actually ordered it, but it didn't arrive in time, the creative visualization. So I'll let you know if it's crap or not.
Well, I think in the same way that with my total fear of public speaking, I remember doing something called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, because someone said, go and see someone who can teach you how to do speeches and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this friend happened to be someone who would coach people doing public speaking. I had to do this big speech. But also, actually, his process was this NLP. And actually, that was fascinating. And so that's the idea of actually your brain. I'm so clever, your brain. You can actually just switch off fear. So you might have fear on a number of things. For me, I used to really sort of hyperventilate. It became a very physical thing, and it was awkward. And they trace it back to why. And for me, I actually wanted to sing professionally. I loved classical music, and I had a very bad experience. And so it really halted me. So they take you back over the experience, and they kind of wash it from your brain effectively, and then they bring you back. And one thing, and so you can approach anything, I think, if you look at things differently. One thing that he taught me, which really helped me, was he said, when you're scared, actually being scared is the same emotion as being excited. And so approach it from a different point of view. And it's good to have that gremlin on your shoulder saying, you're going to screw up, but just actually turn the volume down. He's there to protect you. Turn the volume down and actually just like trust yourself a bit more. You know, you've done a few things, it's sort of okay. So there's all sorts of ways to learn and improve. And so whilst they're quite cheesy, I think you grab one thing from each idea.
That's a great link, actually, because you mentioned singing, and we're winding forward 32 years for your song, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but you've chosen Lux Arumque, from Eric Whittaker, the American composer, 2010, and it's a choral piece, a Christmas piece based on a Latin poem, Angels Singing to the Newborn Babe. Tell me the story behind that.
Well, I absolutely love choral music,
right.
And that is makes me sound so deeply uncool. But actually, I think I think I did a lot of singing when I was younger, and actually really considered it as a career. So anyway, I loved choral music, and I still it's for me it's a thing of real beauty, although that close harmony and very clever construction of music. And so there's been no time for music, frankly, apart from now as the children are a little bit older. Sometimes I will go, and it's a bit like almost going to a meditation in a way, when you can go and just take some time out. There was a beautiful one last week to Rachmaninoff Vespers, and that's just, it's so lovely. And Eric Whittaker is someone I discovered through his amazing virtual choir.
It's incredible. Yeah. I've done lots of research before meeting you. I'm very pleased to meet you. And the 185 different people from 12 different countries send in them singing, warbling on, and he mixes it into one.
Well, when it's live, it's often live. So you will have this choir around the world, and kids in their bedrooms, as well as professional singers, and everyone sings together all their different parts. And it's just a very beautiful thing. I think it's very interesting. We have a Christmas carol concert we do here every year, and singing together is a very, it's incredibly good.
So in your firm?
Yeah.
The Anya Hindmarch carol singers?
Choir, but so the point is, though, that singing, it's been proven to reduce stress levels, it ticks so many boxes. It's a very base and important thing. It's a very special thing, and even people, when we coach them here, say, come on, someone from accounts, I've never sung, I'm like, just come. By the end of it, the smile on their face, it's really lovely. So anyway, I love choral music. I think it's a special thing, and I think that whilst it hasn't got the coolest image, actually, when we're also going back to thinking about mental health and taking time out, it's very nurturing, very beautiful. It sort of feeds me. And we were lucky enough to do this project, which was focusing on this what we call the Chubby collection, which is this padded quilted collection we did, and we built to celebrate it for Fashion Week, we built the world's largest beanbag, which sounds a bit mad, which we called the Chubby Cloud. And you were allowed to come onto this enormous, it was huge, absolutely huge. And we had 150 people on it at a time. And it was a very meditative experience. It was very calm. And people, it's just, first of all, they would jump around, and then they just actually lie down. They use beanbags actually in psychiatric hospitals to calm people down. And we had Eric, and I was lucky enough to have Eric, his choir, come and sing Look Sarompe, and it is the most beautiful piece of music. And once you get a taste for that sort of, I think, level of kind of often clashing and complex harmonies, when you just think about ordinary music, more sort of popular music, it's just much less rich, actually. So also the sort of Tallis Scholars, anything by Taverner, it's just, that's really, really beautiful.
So are you religious? Do you go to church and then sing there, or? No,
I don't go to church. I was at a Catholic convent. I'm not even Catholic.
So that's beating that out of you.
Yeah, well, funny enough, it's interesting because I was a Catholic convent for school, and so I had sort of 7 years of nuns and mass. What was interesting, it was actually more. We used to have sometimes overnight vigils, candlelit vigils, or we'd have at Easter. Sometimes once in your career at school, you would stay, and all the music would be specially written, or we would go to Israel, to Bethlehem, to Jerusalem, and actually sing and have mass with beautifully specially written music there, and there's incredible sites. It's so historic. So actually music and religion, fun enough, to that thing where we all have an emotional side, we all have a spiritual side, whether it's religion per se, but some sort of spiritual thing is very special. So do I have that? Absolutely. Do I go to church every Sunday? Not at all. Do I sing in church? No. But do I get an absolute kick out of sitting in a beautiful dark church with lots of candles, with beautiful music, and actually taking that moment? Absolutely. And if I had more time, I would. So that sort of music for me is very, very beautiful, and singing and having this choir was really exceptional. It was really a special experience, actually.
So we're going to move from America, if we're going off Eric, and we're going to Morocco. Now, I've been Google imaging this place, Lala Toukahoust, a godforsaken small little place of 3,000 people just south of Marrakesh, but beautiful. I can see from pinging around on the internet, a lake, a dam, the Atlas Mountains in the background. What's going on there? Why have you chosen that?
Well, it's a place that, you find places that just for whatever reason sort of just you get there and you're like, yep, I'm me here. And
are you in a spa resort or just backpacking, or what are you doing?
I've been to Marrakesh, I think, since I was about 6, and I remember when I first went with my parents and how incredibly foreign it feels.
Right.
It's as close to a really different world as you can get, I think, 3 hours from London. A different climate, the sound of the birds, the bright blue skies, the mountains. It's a cold country with hot sun. It's a really sort of special place, and I loved it. I remember going, I had very fair blonde hair when I was a child, and there were water cellars and men selling oranges that had leaves still on them, and things that you just didn't sort of have in London, all those tiny things. And people were so fascinated by me, so they kept sort of touching my hair, and it was frightening. It was kind of exciting and frightening. So I've always loved that culture and that sort of richness. And I've started sort of going back quite a bit. It's a lovely
to the same town.
Well, so Marrakesh is, obviously incredibly special, and then outside of Marrakesh you have these wonderful Atlas Mountains, and I think there's something about the clarity of the air and the light around the mountains. So we sort of often go a few times a year. We'll go for a long weekend, which you can do.
Husband and kids, or just husband?
Yeah. Sometimes just the two of us. Actually, it's quite nice. Sometimes also with the kids. And we actually decided to have my husband's 60th birthday there, and we took a very small group of just a few families actually, but just had the most lovely weekend. And it's a place where it's definitely Moroccan. It's not, sometimes you go to France and they're trying to sort of do sushi 1 minute and something the next. It's Moroccan food. It's Moroccan through and through. We arrive on the Friday night. They put on the hammam. You're scrubbed. You're lying in this amazing hammam, steamed. They wash you like a child. They wash your hair. You then have dinner in front of the fire where you have a lovely tagine and you're sitting there all wrapped up because it's cold. In the morning you go for a hike in these incredible mountains and it's hot, and have lunch outside with that delicious handmade bread and it's just sort of really lovely. It's
sounds
very
gorgeous.
Sort of fancy. It's very fashion, which is what I love when I'm off. And you go back and you just that lovely delicious fresh orange juice and the call to prayer. I mean, it's very exotic actually.
Do you travel with your own handbags?
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay. So it's unfashioned, but you've got a piece of fashion.
Well, yes, but I'm lucky enough I can design things that I want and need. And for me, fashion, I'm not a frilly fashion person. I mean, I love fashion only for the end game, which is that you feel good.
Yep.
So fashion for me is about confidence. It's about putting on things that you wear, and when you are wearing them, you then don't think about what you're wearing. You are the best of you, if you like.
Yeah. Owning the front cover.
Exactly, and it's just that you then forget about it and you just smile with your eyes. And so I am lucky enough that I can make things that work for me and that sort of feel lovely and are beautifully made. Because I'm fascinated by craftsmanship as my real passion, and so I do absolutely. But I think when I'm off, I also like to be off. You want to kind of go, and I can be very happy in my lovely jalaba and my sort of my nice sloppy handbag, and I'm off duty, which is nice. Yeah.
So I'm probably the least fashionable person you will ever meet. But I do like good craftsmanship and things well made, but I've got a yearning for things that justify them being sort of expensive and special, and that is functionality. So I love a really expensive watch, and I go, yeah, but I can also tell the time. So I like handbags. What's going to do with me? I don't use handbags, but I like the fact if it's a really expensive, beautiful handbag and people rave about your brand and you and your products, but you can also put things in it and carry it. If it was just, I don't know, a brooch, you go, yeah, it just looks nice, nothing wrong with that. But for me, I need the justification of you can put it over your shoulder, it's got my passport in, so it's serving a function as well as being sensational.
Well, I think that's two things I'm fascinated by. I mean, for me, the word luxury just means nothing anymore. And for me, luxury is so much about the craft, how things are made, and the functionality. I mean, the reason I think we all love our phone is they're fantastically functional. They are our phone, they are our camera, they are our photo albums, they are our diaries, and it's so efficient.
So you
heaven.
are the world's best intuitive link merchant, because that is the link to your possession. You have chosen your phone. So let's go there.
They fell out of me. So that's the point.
So obviously these are real choices. Yeah. So tell me why you have chosen your phone.
Well, so to the point that it's I think efficiency is luxury. The fact that I don't have to carry all those things I spoke about separately and lug them around, and it's an effort. So it's a real luxury to have things that are really efficient. So I think that's very lovely. I mean, I also think luxury for me is about stories.
Yes.
So whilst a phone is super efficient, and it has my lovely stories in it, my photographs and all my diary and all the things that make up me. I also love the idea of something that might be a beautiful leather wallet or journal that has a handwritten message in from my husband embossed into the leather that I can always say, I was given this on this birthday because I was going travelling, and so I think stories are also what luxury is about. So there's various different levels of things that interest me. But no, you're right, to my possession. Sorry, that was really neat and unplanned, just to say.
Was it an easy one for you to choose, or did you?
Well, I mean, if we're honest, it's the one thing you'd kind of, would you not grab it? Yes, it's got all your photos in, it's got, it's your life, it's your, as my phone goes off, it's like, that's my child calling, it's the noise of, you hear your own phone ring, don't you?
I've just come from a lunch, but the reason why I'm wearing a tie, which I haven't worn for 4 years, this is from a charity shop, is I'm meeting a friend of my wife in his club.
Yeah.
And I had to have a tie, so I've got to nip into Oxfam and buy a tie. But also, you can't use your phone. So we've just had lunch, sitting around, dear old friends, and what I've realised, it's not about checking work texts, I couldn't care less, right? But I pepper my conversation with, have you been to wherever? And then I'll get my phone out and show you a picture. How's your kids doing? And you think, wow, so that a prop. And this nice friend, JJ, said, you've got to use your imagination.
Well, totally.
We're going to Grayson Perry's house this weekend, the house for Essex. But I would show a picture of it to you.
Yes, totally.
But I can't, because you're not allowed picture in the club.
But it's right. We had the same conversation last night, actually. Someone was talking, and he was an architect, and he was talking and showing the person next to him, said, no, talk, don't show.
Yes.
And it's a real discipline, and it's hard. In some ways, I think it's a shame, because I think that it's much richer for all the conversation. When we didn't have phones with pictures on, we would have probably had a little brag book of pictures in our notebook, or so you would have probably had that anyway. But I think, though, it's a real luxury for that reason of it being wildly efficient. I'm obsessed by photographs, just because it's so lovely to record not only your life and your kids and so on, but also interesting things you see. I find it a very rich source of inspiration. So one of the things I did fairly recently, which was quite a luxury, I think, is I actually scanned every one of the photographs, because I had drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers of photographs, from way back, since I was born, and I put the whole lot. So I had literally a room full of boxes of photographs, and someone came and picked them up and scanned the whole thing and brought back one tiny little USB drive, which now contains all my photographs. So now every single one of my photographs is scanned in on my iPad. I can go right back to the day I was born, which is amazing. So I can search, I can take a face and search through the years, and that's a real luxury. So you can sit on a plane, you have every single one of your photographs ever taken. And then I burnt them all. Isn't that really terrifying that I had to do that? So I thought, what's the point if I've got them? If I take a photograph today...
you burnt the hard copies?
Yeah.
Or in a sort of ceremonial ceremony?
It was really a hard moment, because, in fact, if I take a photograph today and it's on my phone, I don't have a hard copy. I don't need a hard copy, right? It's there, it's backed up. I have a very efficient system. So the photographs that were just cheap, kind of, drugstore kind of printing ones, I don't need to keep them. I've now got them logged and safe. So that was easy. I could burn all those. If there was anything nice, I kept like a beautifully hand-printed photograph. But anyway, big moment to do all of that. And that was a real luxury, actually, because it means I have absolute access to my photographs. I can sit on a plane and call off any... And the kids borrow my iPad and sit and just go through and then laugh.
Where do you stand on silver frames? The silver frame on your grand piano with you and your husband at your wedding or whatever.
I think it's really nice to have photographs out. I mean, not so many that it's sort of, drowning, but I think it's lovely to be surrounded by photographs, and that it's a thing that it definitely improves your mood. And memories, they have an effect on you. I think it's a really nice thing. Although, of course, if they're there all the time, you don't notice them, so it's quite nice to refresh.
And with 5 kids, this is, definitely true of us, is, we've got oodles of pictures of Alex, our oldest, and... not so many of our fourth. Now, tell me, you mentioned earlier taking back your business. So, rookie error, did you sell it to someone who didn't give a toss and edged you out, or was it just a naturally run its course? Or
no, I mean, we sold a bit of it, and with the really nice people, had a very nice relationship. There was no issues there, but I missed the sort of owning of it, and so we bought it back about 4 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
With a new partner, and it's really exciting, actually. Yeah. And so I had sort of sold a bit of it, thinking I wanted to perhaps go down to 3 days. I mean, I've worked since I was 18, and have a very busy home life and so on, and thought that I would want to take a bit more time and so on.
You don't want. I've only met you for half an hour. You don't want to do what I do, which is
children. No.
You don't want to relax. You want to keep working, which is fine.
Fun. You know what? There's a journey to go on, and actually, I like leading my people myself, and I sort of missed that role a bit. So yeah, no, really exciting and busy, because I originally, obviously, when I grew the business from nothing, so sort of grew all those departments, but I finally was doing both the sort of CEO role and the creative role, and I thought I should pick one because it was getting too much, and so I picked the creative, even though I was kind of keen on both, thinking that was the more difficult one to sort of recruit, and brought in a CEO, and I've gone back to doing both. So it's sort of hard, because you're sort of sucking up all the kind of distribution and supply chains and warehousing and agreements and God knows what to sort of manage. But actually, you know what, it's really lovely. I'm really happy, actually.
So is it in my, I've got a variety of different hats, but in my sort of conventional business hat, I've talked to lots of CEOs, and there are certain types of people which I completely empathise with, where you don't want to be reporting to anyone. You've got your bloody name on the bag. You need to be in total control. Doesn't mean you don't hire lots and lots and lots of very, very, very senior people, but when push comes to shove, you're the boss of them.
I think I am a bit of a control freak, I will admit. And my husband would call me bossy, although I think it's very important to rename that word bossy for women to being leadership skills,
yes.
by the way.
Yes.
As everyone says,
I once said to my wife's having a nana nap. Like, power nap!
Yeah, exactly, literally.
Now, I'm going to ask you the last question,
Yeah.
the last trick question, which is, who would you like to hear on 5 of My Life next? And I can get anybody. They can't be dead, and they can't be fictional.
Okay.
But so who would you like me to interview next?
So many people would be really interesting. I mean, I don't know if you know Christiane Amanpour, who's really
The
fascinating.
reporter?
Yes, who's CNN and who was a war correspondent and is amazing, and she's fascinating. She's a very dear friend of mine, actually, and she is fascinating. You would love her. Gosh, there's so many people. Who would I like to hear?
Let's stick with Christine.
Okay, sure. Christiane would be pretty cool, I think.
I'm giving her a ring this afternoon.
Okay. You should interview Kirsty Young.
Oh, God, I'd love to. Do you know, it's been a real pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed hearing you talk, and thank you for being so generous and authentic and open.
Well, thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it too. It's very nice to meet you.
The 5 of My Life was presented by me, Nigel Marsh. Producer, Alex Mitchell. Sound production and theme music by Darcy Thompson and Matt Nicholish.